All right, welcome back to the Journey Home, the story of us. This is episode 2 of season 2, or episode 17 if you're following. I think Bucky, you've done it at episode 16 for the last one. They are uploaded on YouTube, they're on Spotify, and I believe Spotify uploads it to Amazon Music or such, or Audible, I'm not sure. I'd have to go in and look on them. And we are reading some stories today with Bucky. Thank you. From your book Tales on
Thank
the Wings
you.
of Time, we are doing ones from the actual book because they
Yes.
coincide with the ones that you wrote recently as a rewrite, but from a different point of view of the last episode.
Yeah. Which proves, like we said, you could look at things from different perspectives.
It's all in line or in sync because as there is no coincidence. I'm redoing a guidebook on Oracle cards I created, and there's paintings involved. You know this. I'm actually on the cards of the father and the mother. So this is talking about masculine and feminine energy. And it doesn't have to do with gender. They're energies that anybody can embody. We have both inside of us. So going through these different point of views and perspectives gives us an idea about which one resonates most with a person and how the story could be slightly different from a different point of view or a different energy.
Yeah. But how they also have their own similarities too.
Yes. I think it's more important because when we're reading them, you get the idea of, again, whether it's from the point of view of a feminine or masculine perspective energy, we're kind of touching on what's the concept in your stories, because the concepts in your stories that we've done, a lot of them do touch on the traumas. A lot of them touch on how the resilience, how are you honoring honoring your ancestors, honoring yourself, honoring your family, and how you're honoring the land itself. So these concepts bring us back to a healed state. So we touch on them. We touch on a lot of feeling wronged, unjustified. We even touched on, again, the control. We have a Western society. We had people that were coming in as colonizers that came in and moved people around just for their own space, which disrupted the harmony even in just the land itself. So,
Yeah.
I mean, indigenous people are stewardships as we're going back to this, and it's like you just displaced that. So you displace you call disharmony and something that was already harmonized. So all of these concepts we've touched on in the last season, um, I think we talk about quite a bit. I know you post quite a bit, and giving a little thanks, a lot of thanks to Bucky, because you share a lot of your perspectives with the world. Even if it upsets people, you still share that perspective because you're authentic, um, because there's a message there. It might just not be somebody else's cup of tea.
Yeah. But if we're speaking from truth, then it really shows that that person takes offense to the truth rather than takes offense to what you're saying.
Right, which is one of the concepts when working with other people or readings that I've done with other people is you have people of the air of identity or ego or trauma. Again, they're identifying with something because they don't want their own life, their own operations, their own code of operations to be upset because for them it worked so far. But it doesn't work for everybody. So
Yeah.
you're speaking truth and you're just bringing the light in. If somebody's taking offense, it's because they're on one side or another. They're not able to see all sides, and you create the thread. You create the tree, the branches, and that which, so that people may be able to see all different kinds of perspectives instead of just the singular one that they're in most of the time.
Yeah. Because most of the time, the restrictions we have are self-imposed, like we've been saying. Like if you're a prisoner of thought, then your thoughts will limit your potential because thoughts will only take you so far. It's your potential that you unlock or have unlocked is what pushes you forward in any facet of life, be it spiritually or because there's some people that make their religious belief or their political belief or whatever belief their main character trait, and so that's what they're limited to.
Yeah. Again, when the limitations are those things that are, and it's not ironic enough that some of the stories that we're touching on today have an aspect of being exploring it from the position or perspective of child, because as children you learn those limitations, you learn about the 3D, you learn about the way it's systematically put in people to, like we've talked about, go to 9 to 5, pay some kind of tax and then hopefully retire, if not just die. And it's like, what kind of life is that? That's a limitation because they've like bought into or believed, and it's not bashing anybody's belief system, but into what they were exposed to. So when you're born here as a child, none of those traumas, none of those pains, none of those feelings of unwantedness or isolation is there in a child because it's learned. You learn that by interacting in the 3D world, the way it's kind of set up, and it is shifting currently. You're watching it shift in different places, and some may not understand it, but we're going through those hard concepts. You're going through um, just the emotions of it and how to again heal it and seeing it from a different point of view, seeing it from a different perspective or another person's perspective of it, and how maybe to move forward.
Yeah,
I would say maybe, and I said maybe because that depends on the person. Because the person,
yeah, it
I don't.
depends on because nobody can make you move forward. You have to do it yourself. You have to make that decision yourself.
Mhm. Okay, so we are gonna continue to show you the original stories you had. You did these were they in 2020 or 2021?
2021, I think it was.
Okay, and these were. I do remember hearing them in 2020 though, odd enough. Um,
Yeah, probably.
these are in the Tales on the Wind of Time book, which you can purchase. I've always added the link in with anywhere I'm posting it. Um, and it's on Amazon. It's in any Barnes and Nobles. You can buy the
Barnes
physical
and
book.
Noble, yeah.
So these
Or
are.
you could get on your phone if you have iOS, Android on your Kindle Fire, that one other one, that Kindle Fire, or that tablet that just has books on it. You could get on there. Yeah,
So anywhere an ebook form kind of would have it, you can kind of get in
pretty
through that.
much.
So
Yep.
these three that we're going to read, the first three that we're going to read, are from the originals. That is the kind of the opposite perspective in a way, but not quite opposite, just a different point of view of it, perspective of experiencing it. The last three, or the first three we did in the last episode. So the berry
Yeah.
gatherer, the hunter, and the vision, and the titles were slightly different in the last episode, but same concepts kind of explored.
Just to give you a different perspective on a title, because the title, most of the time, I don't pick the title. It just comes, oh, well, that fits the main thing of the story. So that's the title.
That I can understand because there's times when I'm painting music and I could use the title of the music, sometimes they're mashups of music to paint. And if it's a mashup, what do you call the art piece though? Because sometimes you get a different name for the piece of art than you did for the music title that you're listening to or the playlist even. So, and
Yeah.
it just pops right in. So somebody's asked, where do you get your
Yep.
information channel? And I'm like, no. It's like an answer. It's just there. Here it is.
Yep.
All right. So, um, I guess we go with like we were doing. I could read the first one.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless you want me to read the first one, but it's up to you. But
Um,
I always taught ladies first. So
okay. I'll read the first one then. So thank you. Okay, so the berry gatherer. Our story begins with a berry gatherer who was the best of his village and always seemed to know where the best berry spots were. And that led all the other berry gatherers to always question how he always knew where to go. But he always made sure to only give vague hints or where the best berries were, not as a way to make himself better than anyone else, but as a ways to protect his few select spots. So as he finished his work for that day, his baskets overfilled with berries as always, he noticed on his way back to the village a hunter dragging a deer behind him that he had obviously gotten on his morning hunt, which made him think to himself, if only I was that hunter, I would be looked at as not only an important provider for the whole village, which he felt gathering berries, but the importance of bringing back a deer, let alone an elk or buffalo, paled in comparison. So that night he went to sleep, and when he awoke, he was the hunter he had seen the day before, and how he enjoyed all the skills he possessed. From knowing how to sneak around in the trees and short grass to tracking an animal using their tracks from hours before, and most importantly, having the ability to taking an animal with a single shot of an arrow from his bow, showed him he was truly master of the hunt. So as he finished skinning the buck and that he had gotten on that morning's hunt, it got him thinking that this was without a doubt the path he should have taken from the time he was a small boy, instead of that of being a picker of berries. For this path would allow him to become the man that legend would remember for not only his hunting prowess, but also for the great contributions he's made to the tribe during his days. And it says to be continued.
Yeah, because it is to be
It
continued.
is. Okay, so a little bit of the differences obviously is we've seen in the version where it was point of view of a woman doing it, she was comparing herself to what the women were gathering instead of a hunter, which would be more of what
Yeah,
masculine or a male role would be sometimes in a tribe or even in any kind of nomadic situation. So you're seeing that aspect, and we do get a little bit of the flavor of going to bed at night and getting up, and now you're the hunter, now you're this person, and this kind of want for more recognition or and even an air of competition, so not feeling good
yeah,
about oneself.
yeah. But you're also a very important part of the community being a berry picker because that gives you things to either trade within the village or also offer it to be traded out of the village for things that the village might need.
True. And also I can go a step further. I'm like, what do the buffalo and the elk and the deer eat? Normally they would eat berries, so in a way, you're still fleshing out those important spots. You're still in nature. You're still bringing in that balanced space. And again, it's we can say yes, there are people out here who are carnivores, but if you go on a carnivore diet, eventually you're going to need to reintroduce some kind of small fruits, vegetables, and stuff into your diet because it can be very toxic to the body after a prolonged period. So berries are important. All
Yeah.
right.
Okay. I got the next one right.
Yes.
Okay. This is The Hunter. Our story begins of a tale lost to the winds of time that speaks of a legend of a mighty hunter who was the best of his whole village. But it is said that he wasn't always the great hunter the legend speaks of, but that is another story for another time. This story, in order to tell it best, we must start at the beginning. The, the tale begins with our hunter having just finished skinning the buck he had gotten on his morning hunt, and as he gathered the parts of the animal his wife would need for tanning the hide, he noticed a tribal councilman walking past, surrounded by other councilmen, deep in discussion, which caused the hunter to think to himself, if only I was that councilman. I would be surrounded by other councilmen discussing an important issue and always have a voice in issues that concern the village. So that night he went to sleep, and when he awoke, he was the councilman he had seen the day before, and how he enjoyed going to council meetings and being looked at as a person of importance in his village. But by the end of the day, he noticed for the first time how well the chief had things in the village, which made him think to himself, if only I was the chief, with all his power and his grand teepee, to always having the last word on decisions made in the village. That night he went to sleep, and when he awoke, he was the chief. And again, how he enjoyed the power the chief had, from getting the choice cuts of meat from any kill brought into the village, to having the finest ponies and the softest furs in his grand teepee. But just then he looked up to the sky and noticed a majestic bald eagle soaring across it, which made him think, being chief is okay, but there are so many responsibilities. I wonder if only I was the eagle, I would be free and still considered the most powerful animal in all of creation. So that night he went to sleep. And when he awoke the next morning, he was the eagle he had seen soaring in the sky the day before, which frightened him at first, but once he got the hang of flying, there was no better feeling. The mix of power and freedom had him feeling so content that he couldn't possibly put into words to even begin to describe it. But again, after soaring through the sky that day, near dark, he spotted a great bull elk feeding in a clearing surrounded by his herd, which again made him think to himself, if only I was that bull elk, I would be looked at as not only powerful, but also an important leader, for I would decide which way the herd would go each day. So that night he went to sleep, and when he awoke that next morning, he was the majestic bull elk he had seen the day before. Standing in the same clearing, he threw back his head, which showcased his massive antlers. He then let loose a bugle that echoed through the trees as he led his herd, reveling in his power and importance. After leading the herd a short distance, they stopped to feed, and it is while doing this that one of the herd noticed a hunter crouched in the short grass behind a fallen tree, to which he gave a mew, which she gave a mew, which is the signal the herd used to alert each other to danger. But the great bull elk thought little of this, and after hearing the alarm, he thought to himself, that small hunter cannot harm me, and it was just as the arrow left the bowstring and struck him behind his front left shoulder that he fell to the ground and moved no more. That the great hunter awoke, back as he was the mightiest hunter in his village.
So we come full circle on that as well, and we see again the wanting more, because you see that in the undercurrent of the story. It's that it's kind of this, oh, this person has power, oh, this person has this luxury, or this person has importance, and they're not quite seeing it in themselves. It's almost this craving for something outside, and yet the experience is what's teaching the hunter, the warrior, the berry picker, the berry gatherer, all of the things that are all the experiences themselves, all the responsibilities, all the different kinds of aspects that come with each one of those roles instead of just being himself.
Yeah.
What was your inspiration for behind writing these particular stories before we read the last one in that series?
Well, pretty much just being like, people always want more. You always hear about it. Like somebody may have a job or something that they like doing, and they feel like they could always do more. Like I basically it was well, mostly about like how um, wanting more always leads you back to where you are in a way, because wanting more doesn't necessarily mean that your life will be any better. And um, in a way that you can have the same life and still make it better in a way. Does that make sense? I don't think it does.
It does, yes.
We always strive to make it be better, I guess.
You kind of see that with um it's almost like I said, so people looking outside of themselves, right? They're looking for the
Yeah,
outside thing that will complete them instead of realizing they're already complete. And we kind of talked about it earlier. They're already complete coming into this. It's those things on the outside or roles or identities in which they think is more important because they're doing a comparison. So we get it with people always, keeping up with the Joneses or whatever. You got to have the, or
yeah,
keeping up with the Kardashians, as some say, but you always got to have the next big car or the next big television because it'll make you happy. Look how happy they are. Look how luxurious it is and all this other stuff. And it's like, but is that happy? Like, because if you're not happy with yourself, you're always looking for the next thing. You're always chasing after the next goal. And then once you get it, then you're like, oh, I have it. Now what? As opposed to if
yeah,
you're happy at any given time, at every given time, then whatever you're given, you're always happy with at that point. And there's no, doesn't mean there's no motivation to want to have a goal or create something, like you're creating stories or paintings or whatever it is, but you're having this time now to actually, um, be able to not chase the material in a way. You're
yeah,
always sitting in yourself. Like you said, you're always coming back to yourself. So most people do that external chase for things and find out at the end of the day, at the end of everything, even if at the end of mortality, all you have is you. All those material things, they're not going anywhere. They're
yeah,
not going with you. All you have is you.
yeah. That reminds me of this thing that I read. It was a while ago. It's not about what a man has while he's here. It's about what he leaves behind when he's not.
Yeah. And you could see that this person was tying importance, though. They're still trying and tying
Yeah,
importance to certain roles or certain aspects. And it's funny because you're talking, you've seen a quote. I've seen one where it was, some people are asking whatever it is, spirit for purpose. Well, what, like, I need a purpose, I need to be important, and all this other stuff. And it goes, but what if your purpose was simply, even just that day, that something that changed somebody's world was just simply taking the moment to smile and talk to somebody or listen to somebody or just
yeah,
offer a hand or open a door. That could have made that person's day. That kind of butterfly effect went out anywhere. And it was just in that small act of kindness that that purpose could have fulfilled something big as a domino. So people are always chasing this big grand thing, and yet they forget that a lot of the smaller things, nature, berry picker, berry gatherer, those things are important too.
yeah,
Again, it would be tied down to, like you said, what is the way that is society maybe deeming it, or a system that's put in place maybe actually creating these consumer type people, like to always look outside of themselves instead of inside. So,
yeah,
well, it's a good quote. Like, what do you leave behind? What are you leaving behind with you? And how, there's a song I was in, how did you love? You can have all those things, you can have all the huge castles, you can be an angel of mercy, you could, all those other things, but what did you actually leave behind? How was love left behind in a way? How was that seen through other people? How is it living through other people? Because that's really what's being left behind.
yeah,
Did you like that one? Okay, so this one is the you did the Vision Revisited was the last title on
yeah.
the different point of view from the last one. This one is just the Vision. And I shall read that one. Thank you. The Vision. Our story is one of many that float on the winds of time. It tells of a renowned medicine man who legend tells was known for his ability to not only talk to the ancestors during the many ceremonies the village held each year, but also for his ability to cure all that ailed the people of the village. It was this day that will be forever told in legend about the holy man who had just finished his prayer for the people of the village that morning, and after walking back to his teepee he set about busying himself with the requests from the various people of the village, many of which had been delivered the day before. He sighed to himself, thinking, "A holy man's job is never done. With that thought, he walks to the door flap of his teepee and lifts it open. As he takes his first steps outside, his eyes needing time to adjust to the brightness of the morning sun, his eyes are drawn to the sky where he sees a mighty hawk flying through the sky above him. As he watches the hawk drift across the morning sky, the meaning of this hits him, for this is seen as not only a sign of good fortune, but also as a sign that he is fulfilling his life path to the fullest. But this also gets him thinking, I wonder if Brother Hawk has any responsibilities that weigh him down each day. With that thought in mind, he goes about the village to fulfill his duties as a holy man. But as he came to the end of the day, when he had finished his duties, his mind again wanders back to the hawk he has seen that morning. So as he pulled open the door flap of his teepee, he decided it was something he could explore further. So he lit the cooking fire in the middle of his teepee, not a large fire, but large enough for what he needed. He then sits at the edge of the fire, eyes closed deep in concentration and prayer. It is said that this was the day that many would say he transformed into the hawk. But being one with animals was nothing new, for he had knew we were all connected through and by Mother Earth. All connected though through. No, that's through. It is after some time that as the vision deepened, he felt and heard everything the hawk did and how this experience transcended anything he's ever known. In fact, it was hard to put into words the things he saw, let alone the things he felt. But as all things go, it got quite unexciting after a few minutes, which in reality were the equivalent of 2 hours. So, in search of a new exciting experience, the holy man shifts his focus to one of the most powerful of animals, the mighty buffalo, who he always admired for not only their strength, but for their contribution to the village through the covenant that had been made with the Buffalo Nation all those years ago. And it is as before that as the vision deepened, he could feel and hear everything the mighty buffalo felt and heard, from the stories they told in the buffalo language to the many jokes and jests they told and played, both old and new. And my, how he laughed and talked to so many of the Buffalo Nation, and he almost forgot about his time being short that his spirit would need to return back to his body, which saddened him, but also made him much more sure of his connection to Mother Earth and all of her creations, be it the two-legged, the walks on all fours, or the ones who fly in the sky. So, a vision quest, sort of. A
Yeah.
shaman or holy man's way of seeing through the eyes of different perspectives again. The story kind of reminds me of, and it's written, so we see the story, Once a Future King, you see it in King Arthur. I think it was Sword in the Stone. Like, I forgot if Disney did a thing on it or whatever. But you see it as Arthur taking on the perspectives of every animal because it is a different world that you're embodying. It's a different mindset, whether it be a buffalo, a hawk, an ant, a squirrel, whatever it is. It's a different type of physics, a different type of wiring of the brain. And so it brings a different respect because most people think that ants and everything, they're small, they're underneath them. We eat the buffalo, so therefore the buffalo is less than. Most people think that
Yeah.
way, but we are connected to them all because it's just a different station, a different experience that they're going through.
Yeah. And then did you see in that one and in that other that rewrite that I mentioned the covenant between the basically the humans and the Buffalo Nation? Did you see that? Have you read that story or know that legend?
Um, I have not. We did the seven buffaloes. I think we did that one.
Yeah,
Is that the?
but this is a completely different one. This is basically a short thing about it is the Buffalo Nation made a deal with the people that as long as the people honored the buffalo's sacrifice to them, like giving them clothes and meat and all that, that the buffalo would always be there to make sure that the people were provided for.
So again, so and wasn't that part of also a little bit of the warning that many people prophesy too? that again, if
Yeah.
you consume the buffalo, that's going to decimate the land, and in a way it did. It really
Yeah.
did. I have not read that
Yeah.
one, but that sounds interesting, and thank you for giving the summary.
Because it's kind of long, but it's interesting because that was back when I was really into like going more historically accurate. So I blended like sometimes I blend two or three things into one story and then have to remember, oh well, that's where I got that part of the story, and yeah.
And yet, like we're talking about, it makes a lot of sense. It's a lot of, you're tying in threads on it, you're showing the interconnectedness, and again, harmony. We're talking about things that were disharmonious. We're going back into harmony itself, which is it. You and it's mentioned there, Mother Earth. Um, no coincidence. I'm working on mother card, feminine energy. I say female, feminine energy in itself. Um, Feminine energy is something that is supposed to bring back harmony and unity. So once that heals,
Mhm.
and you're talking Mother Earth, and now you're talking soil, you're talking the womb, you're creating this harmony again. And you've shared stories too about the uh was it, I know it was you, I shared the story about the buffalo, and that was it recently that somebody helped one of the buffalo in Yellowstone?
Yeah,
There was a few of them that you
that
shared.
guy, that guy that got attacked by the buffalo in Yellowstone.
No, no, it
Is that
was
what you're talking about?
no, no, no. There was a story, and oh man, I forgot. Maybe it wasn't you, and it was something about I can't remember if it was indigenous people in there that were actually. I can't remember. I'm like, I heard it, and it's been like weeks, and everything's kind of jumbled. But yes,
Yeah,
even them being the caretakers, bringing them back. We have heard about the white buffalo calf, as they're not
yeah,
there. I believe there's one that's been born. That you brought me to that. I think it was last year. I don't know if it was this year or last year. There was one born.
uh, yeah.
So all of that is kind of coming back into balance. I don't really have any. I don't feel sorry for people who get tossed by buffaloes because they want to pet them. That's just crazy. So,
Yeah. I think you'll really like this next one though.
um, I saw some of it, and and I think the first paragraph, and I kind of skimmed the first paragraph, but I'm like, oh, somehow this is touching something, especially since it's been a rainy day for the last couple days.
Yeah, I think you'll like it
Um,
because you could interpret it so many ways. You could interpret it like religiously, or you could interpret it like if you're a parent, that sort of way, or you can interpret it as just growing up, like thinking about talking to your parents or somebody. But yeah, you could interpret it a bunch of ways.
and we've just come out of Mother's Day. Father's Day is not so far away,
Yeah.
so it's kind of like I was gonna pick that one. I was like that one.
I actually wrote a story for Mother's Day. Did you read it? I put it on Facebook.
I did read that one. Yes, I did read the one
Yeah.
on you had from others. Yep, I did like that one a lot.
Yeah. Then I have one for Father's Day too.
Okay, so we should probably do the one for Father's Day. We haven't read the one in the recording for Mother's Day, but it would be awesome. Again, if you want, it's all linked together. Bucky has you could check out Tales on the Winds of Time. I think you've connected them all together on your as your business page and such. So
Yeah.
amazing stories. So thank you. Um, you're reading the next one, right? I just read the last one. See, I'm getting lost in my own thing.
Um, did you? Yeah, I have this one, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Because this is the fourth one,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
If I read, if I counted for, yeah, this is the fourth one. So it's my turn.
Okay.
Okay. But I think I really like this one. I really like how this one turned out. In this is Help Pour Out the Rain. In the heart of a lush valley where the mountains kissed the sky and the rivers sang songs of the ancients, a father and his daughter set out on a horseback ride. The sun hung low, painting the horizon in shades of gold and crimson. Their village, a tapestry of life and laughter, faded into the distance as they ventured into the embrace of nature. The rhythmic sound of hooves against the earth created a soothing melody, one that filled the air with warmth and connection. As they rode side by side, the daughter, with her curious spirit and bright eyes, looked up at her father, her heart brimming with questions. Daddy, she began, her voice a gentle breeze against the backdrop of rustling leaves. When we pass away and get to the spirit world, the father felt a familiar tightening in his chest, a mix of pride and sorrow. He was grateful for her inquisitive nature, but the topic weighed heavily on his heart. He encouraged her to continue, offering her the space to explore her thoughts. On the way there, she continued, can I taste the Milky Way? Are we going there to visit, or are we going there to stay? Her words tumbled out like the stars that twinkled above them, each one a glimmer of wonder. He glanced at her, his heart swelling with love. The innocence of her questions pierced through the layers of his own worries and fears. We're all going to the spirit world one day, my little one, he replied softly, searching for the right words. It's a place of peace where the spirits watch over us. It's not so much about visiting or staying, it's a journey back to where we all belong. Her eyes widened with anticipation, and she pressed on. Am I going to see my grandpa? Can I have a pair of wings? Each question hung in the air like the delicate petals of a flower waiting to be answered. The father smiled, a bittersweet ache in his chest. Yes, you will see your grandpa. He will be waiting for you with open arms, ready to share stories of his own. As for wings, perhaps you won't need them. You'll feel the freedom of the wind as you run and play, just as the birds do. You may find your spirit soaring even without them. The little girl nodded, her imagination unfurling like a vibrant banner in the wind. But then she asked, and do you think that Creator could use another person to help pour out the rain? The father's heart paused. He knew that rain was a sacred gift, a sign of Creator's love and nurturing spirit. You know, he mused, we all have our roles in this great circle of life. Some help to bring rain, while others help to grow the plants while some help to grow the plants that drink it. Perhaps in your own way, you can be a part of that, bringing joy and laughter that helps the world bloom. As they rode back toward the village, the sun dipped lower, casting a golden glow around them. The questions lingered in the air, echoing in the father's mind. Each query was a reflection of the daughter's innocence, her desire for connection with the world beyond, and her yearning to understand the mysteries of life and death. Later that evening, after a long day filled with laughter and love, the father tucked his daughter into bed. Her eyelids fluttering as sleep beckoned. He knelt beside her, the warmth of her small hand in his, and whispered a soft prayer to Creator, his heart still full of her questions. Creator, he said reverently, thank you for the gift of my daughter. Please watch over her as she journeys through life. May she taste the Milky Way and dance with the stars. May she feel the love of her grandfather and find freedom in her spirit. And if it be your will, let her be a part of the rain that nurtures this earth. Guide her always. With a final glance at her peaceful face, he rose and quietly moved to his own bed where his life lay waiting. As he settled in beside her, the questions flowed to him again, a gentle reminder of the connection they all shared with Creator and the mysteries of the world. He closed his eyes, allowing the warmth of their love to envelop him. grateful for each moment, each question, and each day they had together.
Yeah, I do like that one. That one was, and you had your own section for it, Our Place in the Circle.
Yeah.
So, what was some of the inspiration behind this one, other than we have an inquisitive child full of innocence asking a lot of questions?
Well, I don't really know. Like it just sort of came to me. I was like, and plus, yeah, that I was like, well, I was like, what would it be like to be a parent? Because you know how kids are; they really have no filter, and just sort of the things that they would add. That even my nephew, even though he doesn't listen to most of the stuff that you tell him, he still has a bunch of questions. And so, what would be one of the things that they would try to want you to explain to them, especially if you just barely lost like a family member or somebody?
Yeah. All those,
Yeah,
you get them tumbling out. Taste the Milky Way. Can I pour the rain? All these things, but it because it's not. Yes, they don't have a filter, but they're also, like we've been talking about, they're not quite in the box of limitations. They're curious.
yeah,
There's not any fear really there. It's more of this wanting to see and explore everything to understand it. So they don't have a box. They just have an open toy box of things, an open toy box, an open thing of toys that are just floating away on the winds of time here. This one.
yeah,
So you get to explore the aspect of being a parent.
yeah,
Kind of fits with the other stories of being the, not so much for the feeling unimportant, but we're exploring the aspect of being a parent to a child that is curious, inquisitive, that's free thinking, that's able to free think, um, and going from that with being the berry gatherer and going through all these experiences. So we're also having this experience of even the connection to our own family. What kind of questions do like the younger generation ask children nowadays? Things are more
yeah,
open, information's different, we see more of the spirituality aspect coming into it, and so it allows a different freedom or a different way of perspective of how we are all connected through the eyes of a child.
yeah,
And also healing, because like you said, it weighs heavy on his heart to explore these subjects, yet her being so inquisitive on it kind of opened it up. It opened it to be like, okay, all right, let me think on that.
yeah.
I forget.
And there's so many other ways to look at it too. He could have just been like, you could, but really he left it open to maybe when she gets older, her own interpretation of what what happens when you make that transition.
Yeah, because, and the prayer at the end, in a way, because it's in a way guiding her to be safe so that she can explore these in her life, as opposed to, well, you can't. How many times have you've heard it from other adults when you have children ask about certain subjects, about death, or even about, they ask about sex, and it's like, how do you explain this to a child? We have to, instead of kind of just speaking to them as being a new mind here, they're inquisitive, they're learning. Speak to them like they are an adult in a way, because
Yeah,
they're just a young mind. So allowing her the freedom to not have something fearful, or not, don't do this, or you're not going to see that, you're not going to go over, we're not going to pass it. Those types of fears or traumas, he didn't allow that was heavy on his heart to be heavy on hers.
yeah.
So that was a beautiful way
Because
of.
we don't know whether or not he lost his father either. Maybe that was why she asked about her grandfather was because he had recently made the transition to the spirit world, and so that was why that question was asked.
I mean, and you don't know the nature of how his father passed. Was he involved in it?
Yeah.
Was it something else? All we knew is that it weighed heavy. Didn't seem like he had guilt or anything or shame, like it was something that was his fault, but still, there was obviously
Yeah.
the long and the missing for somebody that he's being the father at the moment, his father who's not there.
Yeah.
It does kind of bring the cuteness factor in of the string of questions. Can I do this? Like when a little kid asks.
Yeah.
I found myself trying not to giggle because I was like, oh, that's cute.
Be like, are you done? Can I answer now?
And yet it's that type of innocence that most people are coming back into because she's being the most real and authentic, which again brings us back to this feminine type energy. The father's being the nurturer, and that is nurturing energy. Masculine energy is this nurturing type energy. It's protecting, it's focused, it's logical, it allows the space for the feminine to breathe. And she's being the typical authentic feminine who's just, let me go running goofy and all blah, 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 and keep
Yeah.
going. And so that is a very healing aspect to bring in a story. Thank you for writing that one. I may or may not have cried. I won't. I mean, that's hard to get out of me, but it just reminded me of certain things, even with my own father. So thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so this next one, I don't know how to pronounce. I can sound it out. I think is it, would it be an accent between it? Because it's WII. So would it just be Wiiyukta? Or would it be
Yeah. It would be
Wiiyuta?
it would probably it would depend on your tribe. But I
Okay.
would just say Wiiyukta.
Wiiyukta and
Yeah.
is it Akicita or Akikita?
Yeah. I, Akicita, I think.
Okay.
Remember, I don't speak Lakota, so I don't know. Even though if you speak the basis of what your language, it should translate over because they're pretty much a derivative. But yeah, you know how there are three bands here, right? Three bands in my tribe,
Mm-hmm.
and so everybody has their own way of saying certain words, which is ridiculous when we're all speaking the same language.
It's funny because I just had this conversation with someone earlier, and
But yeah,
same thing. Like, okay, I'm learning a more in dealing with mechanical things and building things, right?
yeah,
And so when somebody suggests a certain tool or an object, like go grab this shackle and this spanner, and I'm looking and I go, and they want to know where it is, and I may have put it away. I'm like, can you just describe what it looks like? Because those words mean absolutely nothing to me. I just know what it looks like and what you use it for, and then I can be like, oh yeah, that's the name for it. Because otherwise, I don't know the reference point of the object that you're describing. It's like a foreign
yeah,
language to me. So,
yeah. It's yeah, and so I'm working on a book for the the language, like the alphabet and everything in my tribe's language, right?
mhm.
And so I'm gonna have to get an elder from one of the three bands, get three people, so that I don't disrespect one of the bands and be like, well, this is how this is how we would spell it, because somebody's gonna have a problem with it. So I have to do three times the work gathering up all this information. But yeah,
I understand. I understand. So, and I would be interesting to see what you come up with because I would love to read that too.
yeah.
Okay, so I'll read this as best as I can. Don't mean
There's only
disrespect.
those two. There's
I
only those
know,
two words, Rose. Come on now.
I know. I'm gonna read it as best I can. I'm just gonna the way it's written in a way. But if it's some other pronunciation, I mean, no disrespect to anybody. So
Yeah.
okay, so this is Wiiyukta and Akicita. Wiiyukta the Akicita. So once upon a time, in the vast plains of the Lakota Territory, there lived a young girl named Wiya- Wiiyukta. She was known for her curious spirit and an unwavering love for her community. Wiiyukta spent her days helping her family, gathering herbs, and learning the stories of her ancestors from her grandmother, who spoke often of the Akicita, the warriors who protected their people and kept them safe from harm. One evening, as the sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple, Wiiyukta sat by the fire, listening intently as her grandmother recounted the tales of the Akicita. She spoke of courageous warriors and fierce protectors who stood tall against threats, their hearts filled with bravery and love for their people. The Akicita were not just men, women took up arms, showing valor and resilience, embodying the spirit of the warrior. Inspired by these stories, Wiiyukta dreamed of becoming an Akicita. She imagined herself standing alongside the brave, protecting her community, and earning the respect of her family and friends. But she knew this path would not be easy. The Akisita were chosen not just for their strength, but for their leadership, kindness, and willingness to sacrifice for others. Determined to prove her worth, Wiiyukta started training each day, practicing archery and learning the ways of the land. She sought guidance from the elders, listening to their wisdom and understanding the importance of respect and generosity. With each passing season, she grew stronger and more skilled. One fateful day, dark clouds gathered over the horizon and whispers of danger reached the village. A band of outsiders threatened the peace, seeking to disrupt the harmony that the Lakota people had cultivated for generations. The village council gathered, and the elders deliberated on how to protect their home. Wayukta approached the council, her heart pounding with determination. Let me stand with the Akasita, she pleaded. I have trained hard, and I am ready to protect our people. The elders looked at her, recognizing the fire in her eyes and the strength in her spirit. They saw the heart of a true warrior and granted her wish. That night, as the moon shone brightly, Wayukta joined the ranks of the Akasita. Together they formed a line of protectors, standing firm against the approaching threat. With her bow in hand and courage in her heart, Wayukta felt the spirit of the Akasita flow through her, a legacy of bravery and protection. As the outsiders drew near, the Akasita stood resolute, ready to defend their home. Wiiyukta fought fiercely, her arrows finding their mark, and when a fellow warrior fell, she rushed to their side, embodying the true spirit of the Akasita, selfishness and commitment to one another. As dawn broke, the outsiders retreated, and the village was safe once more. Exhausted but proud, Wiiyukta stood with her fellow warriors, knowing she had proven herself among the Akasita. The elders honored her bravery, recognizing her not just as a warrior, but as a protector of her people. From that day forward, Wiyukta became a symbol of strength in her community. She shared her stories with the children, inspiring future generations to embrace the spirit of the Akasita. They learned that being a warrior meant more than just fighting. It was about protecting one another, showing kindness, and being a guardian of their culture and traditions. And so the legacy of the Akasita lived on, woven into the fabric of the Lakota culture, a testament to the strength, bravery, and unwavering spirit found in both men and women who dared to stand for their community. Wiyukta's journey reminded all that anyone, regardless of age or gender, could embody the warrior spirit, safeguarding the traditions and values that made their people strong. So, a different perspective on, again, it's in the heart of the warrior.
Yeah. And that is historically accurate.
I like that.
So yeah, that is historically accurate.
I kind of like when I'm picking them, sometimes the titles come off. It's kind of funny because you can kind of even see a little bit of how the younger girl in the story you read before this could also grow into and embody something that of a warrior spirit as well.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a connection there if you reach for it. But I do, like I said, it's this hard work on it. People think, I'm just a warrior, you can go out and just, like get stuff done and take care and protect, and it's the actual skill on it. It's the embodiment even of a warrior, because again, warriors aren't out there just killing anything. They're there with a different respect into a protection role, um, and normally operate with an air of compassion most of the time too.
Yeah.
I think we talked about that as well, like the idea of the healer and the warrior. Kind of, they're both in one. Once you bring both of those sides of yourself together, when you engage with other people, whether it be talking, whether it even be them coming at in a fighting stance, if you're sitting at a point that you're at a peace point, at a 0 point, whatever you want to call it, a Zen mode, the most compassionate thing you do is you're not making that person your enemy. You're letting them see the mirror of themselves so that it doesn't escalate into something that would turn into combative style. But even if it was, you know that in yourself you have the ability to take care of yourself, defend whoever it is that you're protecting, even if it's not just yourself. So there's a fine line between things, and I think I forget which. I think it's in Japanese, where if you draw the sword, usually you're drawing the sword to kill. Basically, you're doing that. You're doing that to. That's why you draw the sword.
Yeah,
So there's a bit of
that would
tradition.
be an interesting story to go back to. Is coming from the samurai point of view, and then going like we did with the berry picker and all that. That would be a interesting to look into their their traditional roles and something like that.
Yeah, because there's a lot of nomadic tribes even in samurai, and they did follow certain codes of ethics. There's the Bushido and such that allowed
Yeah,
their own code for a samurai. Um, it would actually be interesting even to tie in a little bit of the Mongolians, because they also were more nomadic as well, and they had a lot of respectful traditions that do mirror a lot of what you're seeing in indigenous culture as well.
yeah.
I think it would be an awesome story. Now you got more stories. No, I'm sorry. Your mind is like, "Oh, this one, this one, this one, this one."
Yeah, I think I could get them all done within a day if I wanted to. Depends on how long I want to make them.
I think you could too. Okay,
Because I think the most I've done in one day is 10 or 11 in one day.
that's a lot.
But
that's
yeah.
that's a lot of stories for one day. It is. I don't
Well,
even
we're
think I
only,
paint that
I
much.
think it's what? I think it's what, four? Is it four now? Yeah, we're four away from 100 so far for the year.
Wow,
In this year, I need four more stories to get to 100 stories for the year so far.
that's a lot. You've done a lot this more than I've done art, and I say that because I'm in between things at the moment, in between learning different
Yeah,
skills. But that's a lot, and I mean, to come up with a story on the spot, as much as I can paint something, sometimes it takes a longer to paint than it is to write. But still, that's a lot of stories to come with, threads and
yeah.
different concepts to kind of work with. 100 in a year. We should celebrate with whatever episode when we get to 100. Whatever episode.
Yeah. Well, I did 269 last year. So
Wow.
I'm trying to keep pace with that. And that was almost three times as much as what I did the year before. It was like 2.64 times as much as what I did the year before that.
Well, you were also, because we were talking about it, you were probably also getting ready to publish the book, which probably, a lot of editing and such and whatnot going through that.
Yeah.
So I could see why it would kind of trickle down, and depending on whatever goes on in your 3D space, your life experience. So,
Yeah. But I'm constantly working. It's just putting the end on most of the stuff that I do start working on
hmm.
because the middle and the beginning is easy. It's just coming up with an ending that suits the body of the story. That's like I had to redo that one, that Goldilocks and the Three Bears one, because I didn't like how the ending came out and I didn't like that I used the same characters in it. So I was like, well, I could just I could redo the ending, and then I can choose different characters for the story. But yeah.
Maybe we'll read that on the next one. I have to write them down because I'll forget. We talk about them, and I'm like, oh, what did we talk about in there?
It's that Wiiyukta one, which is sunshine or something.
Okay.
Wiiyukta,
Oh, he's got a
because
lot
it's
of stories.
their
I know that.
story. Yeah, it's under story.
Right. So you have the next one, and I guess that would bring
Yeah,
me to the last one, which was one that we kind of did a little on the fly, but a little bit about trauma as well. So,
yeah. I think you'll like this one.
all right.
This is The Innocence of Childhood, a reflection of sacrifice, which is kind of weird because I use a couple of these names in a couple of my stories, but call that coincidence or I don't know. On a bright, sunny day, three young children sat in front of their family's teepee, surrounded by the vibrant colors of the plains. Little Ayana, with her beaded necklaces jingling, clutched a small bow her father had made for her. Her brother Dakota sat cross-legged on a woven blanket, proudly holding a toy arrow, dreaming of one day being a great hunter like his grandfather. Their youngest sibling, Nita, leaned against Ayana, her curious eyes watching the clouds drift across the sky. The teepee behind them, painted with symbols of their tribe's history, stood tall under the blue sky, a symbol of their family's resilience. The children laughed and played, their hearts light and free, unaware of the heavy history that had shaped this moment of peace. They didn't know that their carefree childhood was a precious gift fraught with the sacrifice of countless generations before them. Years later, when Ayana, Dakota, and Nita had grown into young adults, they sat together around a fire, reflecting on their lives. Ayana, now a skilled storyteller, spoke softly, her voice tinged with both gratitude and sorrow. Do you remember those days by the teepee? She asked. We played without a care in the world, but I didn't understand that then what it cost for us to have that joy. Dakota, now a protector of their tribe's traditions, nodded. Our great grandparents walked the trail of tears, he said, his voice steady but heavy. They lost everything, their homes, their loved ones, just so we could live here on this land and keep our culture alive. He thought of the stories their elders had told them, the freezing winters, the hunger, the thousands who didn't survive the forced removal. Nita, who had become a healer, added, and our grandparents, they fought to keep our language and ceremonies alive. Even when the world tried to erase them, they hid their secret teachings in their hearts, passing them down in secret so we could grow up knowing who we are. She touched a beaded bracelet on her wrist, a keepsake from her grandmother, who had once whispered to her the songs of their people. The three siblings sat in silence for a moment, the crackling fire casting shadows on their faces. They realized their childhood laughter, the safety of the teepee, and the freedom to play in the sun were not simply given, they were earned through the tears, resilience, and unwavering love of their ancestors. We owe them so much, Anaya said finally, her eyes glistening. Our innocence back then, it was their greatest hope. They wanted us to grow up without the weight of their pain, to know the beauty of our culture without the fear they lived through. Dakota placed a hand on her shoulder. And now it's our turn, he said with determination. We'll protect what they fought for, the stories, the traditions, the spirit of our people, so our children can have their own moments of joy. Nita smiled, looking up at the stars. We will make sure their sacrifices were not in vain, she whispered. Under the same sky that had once watched them play as children, the three siblings vowed to honor the generations before them. carrying forward the legacy of their tribe with pride and love.
That's a beautiful story that kind of wish we read with the when we did the ribbon shirts and the ribbon skirt ones.
Yeah.
But that is a good story, and it is good in the way that they're carrying on with the stories and the songs and the traditions so that they can remember that they're here because of a lot of the sacrifice that was made before.
Yeah.
And we also talked about again being displaced. I did not know that that was the story, just so you know. I had no idea. Just we're talking about in the beginning of this. I don't sometimes I maybe skim the first paragraph. Most of the time I go right to the title and it makes sense to put it on a list. So but definitely something to again think about our ancestors, and you have a lot of it where you talk about the creator and going back even in the story with the little girl asking about creator and pouring the ring and all these important roles that people have, healers, hunters, gatherers, even just the storytellers and the elders that give wisdom. Everybody has a purpose or role. And it took a long time for us to kind of, we have all the people, we have those people with us, our parents, our mother, our grandparents, ones that are still here. If it wasn't for anything that they've went through, we wouldn't be sitting in the position we're at today to be able to tell a story, to be able to even talk about the concept, but even to remember that that was a lot that had gone through, and a lot of even trauma that was accumulated over time that some of us are undoing. We're being the stopping point, and yet can still honor that they went through that.
Yeah.
What stories did you have for the names? Was it Dakota? I think.
It was Anaya and Nita because I remember using those names in a story, except for in my story, um, I think it was one where Nita, um, in one of the stories that I wrote, anyways, Anita was, it was the same relationship. I don't know how that came to be, but in one of my stories, Arnita sleeps with Anaya's husband. And then Anaya has to go through the whole dilemma of whether or not to let it go, sort of thing.
Hmm.
But yeah.
Interesting. It's funny because the names, and I feel like I've read this before, but then
Yeah.
also
And
happens to be really
then
good. So
remember Anaya that Anaya one is the wife of what's his name? Oh, hold on. Wise Bear. Remember?
but yeah, okay, so that's why the name feels familiar. I'm like, wait a second, that kind of seems familiar.
Yeah.
But then you're
But
kind of,
I wrote those before I even heard of this story.
I, and the funny thing is that okay, so it's kind of like somebody else mentioned it because they read a lot of stories here about Stephen King, and is where he will write a totally different series book. Like you go from the Dark Tower, and he'll come from it, and yet kind of
Yeah.
casually throw the character or the name of it or a joke referencing another, even just storyline thread because they're connected together.
Yeah.
That is funny.
Yes.
Now it's like, oh,
Because when I first read this one, I was like, I used those names before. Like the
it's almost like let's go and read those ones the next time too. I'll write those down, put them on the
Yeah.
list on the next one.
Yeah.
Okay, so this last one, we don't have
It
a
doesn't have
title
a
for it.
title.
No, we doesn't have a title. We kind of threw out there a dance of love and care, more it's like a
Yeah.
tango because there's a fine line between as I did the mother card, it came to mind the whole idea of smothering because in
Yeah.
mothering is actually in that word. So you have
Yeah.
smothering, which is, it's too much. Too much of anything can be detrimental. It can be bad. And also,
Yeah.
if it's not done in a particular way, again, if there are certain conditions, if it's not, if the person isn't giving, even pouring into themselves, these, how are you able to be a caretaker for anything else, or anyone else for that matter? So
Yeah.
it kind
And
of
we
brings,
touch on that in this story.
yeah. So I will read the last one. And since we don't really have an official name for it, if anybody wants an official name for it, you can message, comment in section under YouTube or Facebook. I have to get the other one up through Facebook. I haven't been on there quite yet, and we'll take a little step
Mm.
back. But we'll do the first 2 episodes and see what happens. Okay,
All right.
so here's a story that has non-official title. In a time long ago, in a village surrounded by lush forests and flowing rivers, there lived a woman who had a deep love for all creatures. The villagers often saw her wandering through the woods, calling to the animals, nurturing them with care and kindness. Over time, her heart grew larger, and she began to bring more animals back to her home, believing she could save them from the dangers of the wild. At first, her intentions were pure, and the village admired her compassion. But as the seasons changed, so did her home. The small hut that once welcomed a few creatures became crowded with their cries and scents. The woman's love, once a source of joy, turned into an overwhelming burden. She lost track of time, neglecting her own needs and the needs of the animals. The ground became littered with remnants of care gone wrong, and the air grew thick with despair. The animals, once vibrant and lively, became sickly and frail. They were trapped in a world that felt less like a sanctuary and more like a prison. The woman, in her heart, believed she was their savior, but the truth was hidden beneath layers of denial. She could not see the suffering around her. Her love had blinded her to the pain she had unknowingly afflicted. As days turned into weeks, the villagers grew concerned. They noticed the woman had begun to isolate herself, shunning their companionship. They longed to help her, but felt the walls she had built around her heart were too high. When they knocked on her door, hoping to offer assistance, her voice echoed back with justifications, claiming the animals needed her more than they did. Yet in the depths of her soul, echoes of loneliness rang louder than any call of the wild. One day a wise elder ventured into the woman's home, determined to speak the truth. She found the hut teetering under the weight of neglect, a place where love had transformed into a haunting shadow. The elder knelt before the woman and gently said, "To care for so many is noble, but to neglect the few is to lose sight of love itself." The woman's heart trembled at the words. In that moment, she began to see the truth that had eluded her. Each animal was a spirit deserving of care, not a possession to be hoarded. She recognized their suffering, their eyes reflecting the pain of neglect rather than the joy of companionship. With the elder's guidance, the woman learned to let go. She found strength in sharing her love, releasing the animals to new homes where they could thrive. As she healed, the village rallied around her, offering support and friendship. They reminded her that love is not about possession, but about nurturing and letting go when necessary. In time, the woman transformed her pain into purpose. She became a guardian of animals, teaching others the importance of responsible care and the dangers of overwhelming love. The village flourished as they learned to respect the balance between compassion and responsibility, ensuring that no creature would suffer from neglect again. And so the story spread through the winds of the forest, a reminder to all the delicate dance between love and care, and the importance of recognizing when affection turns into hoarding. The animals thrived, and the woman found peace in her heart, knowing she had learned the true essence of love.
Yay!
there is a bit of there's a bit of this, and some, I think there's a point I can talk about it in my own life, where a brief point where you become lonely, so you take on an animal or something, and it doesn't cover the loneliness though. These are things inside of you that to heal, because it could, and some people it does, turn into something more of the animal's possession. It's my pet, it's my animal, right? It's my cat, it's my bird. And
Mm.
you love it so much that you're not seeing that the care that you can't offer it, or are offering it, isn't what it's best for the animal. and that kind of goes even for people. When we take responsibility of other people, even is the type of love or the type of actions I'm taking or not taking the best for that person, the best for that animal? Is it the best even for the materials that you do gain? Are you taking care of your vehicle? Are you taking care of your computer or anything of that which you are taking into your own stewardship in a way? Are you taking care of the earth? Or are you letting it, your love, your pain, your loneliness, this void that you're trying to fill, to consume what's best for, it's a denial, it's an illusion in a way, for the concern for what's underneath your stewardship in a way. What are you being a steward
Yeah.
of? So you put that in words, and I was trying to, because I've come across so many different, and I've even been through certain aspects of it where you go through that loneliness, that void. So it's, you put it in words, a good way to show that there's a dance between it. There's a fine line between the smothering part and the mothering part. Sometimes it's just the S.
Yeah.
You could say smothering is the S because they're stuck. So we don't have a title. I don't know, what would you think would be a title? Maybe we can throw
I
some.
don't know where I would have came up with one. It could be too much of a good thing isn't a good thing. See?
Yeah, we could do
Yeah.
the um the smothering of too much mothering. Any one of those. It could be any. So we haven't really come up with an official title, so we'll put that at the end. And if anybody who's listening, if they got this far, because we have been going a little longer than the last one, I know I threw a bunch of stories in there today. But if you got this far,
Bunch of longer stories. That's why it took so long.
I know. I should have picked a few shorter ones. That's all right. So in the next one, we'll leave a little comment at the bottom. I may actually try to timestamp. I might go back and timestamp where we've started stories. So if people want to just listen to certain ones, give us an
Yeah.
idea, or even if they just want to go kind of a little bit to the end and listen to this one and come up with a title, we can do
Mhm.
that. But all of them are important. They all string together. So I would listen to the whole podcast. Thank you for allowing me to read and writing the stories and portraying them, being a good storyteller.
Well, thank you for reading and listening.
So I will put the most pertinent information for Tales on the Winds of Time and the Discords, because there is Discord called the Tales on the Winds of Time, which the book is kind of pulled out in it. And I believe it's in those that Discord you have the unedited version. Is that correct?
Yep. All the unedited stories are in that,
Okay, so
complete with the grammatical errors and the spelling errors and everything.
so the complete raw version of Tales on the Winds of Time that hasn't been edited or changed or shifted or anything that might be a little bit tweaked in the book is in the Discord.
Yeah.
Anybody is welcome to come in there. It is copyright, just much of every Discord you have a copyright claim on, so that we're not.
Yeah, we have the copyright for everything.
Yeah, but you're welcome to come and enjoy it.